Y'all, I have been inspired. One of my favorite things about theory crafting, especially with a movie in a universe like the Scream franchise, is there's so much space to play. And what stands out to you, like, oh man, how can you not see this, is completely new to somebody else, and vice versa. Well, I was inspired by a video that another creator made about things that we still don't understand about Scream 1. And in it, they drop a nugget, a micro theory that got my wheels turning. And so I have a full theory, including a little piece that was right in front of my face that I'd never noticed before. Did Gale orchestrate some of the events in Scream? And if she did, how was she getting her information? Now, right from the get, I want to say I'm not saying Gale is one of the Ghostface. I'm not saying she physically killed anyone or had a murder plot. But I am saying she is responsible for a lot of the chaos in that movie that made Sid's life a living hell. And the reality is, especially in the first one, she is far from innocent. In this video, we're going to walk through the film from opening credits and build the theory that Gale didn't just cover the story of Woodsboro, she helped shape it with an inside connection, feeding her information and a willingness to nudge events when the story stalled out. We start at the beginning. From frame one, Gale is where she needs to be every single time, too many times to just write off as coincidence. After the murders of Casey Becker and Steve, she's front and center with the rest of the news vans. Now, that's normal. Two brutal teen murders in a small town are going to draw media like flies. But it starts to get weird when you fast forward from there. Later on, Sid's attacked at her house. Ghostface calls, attacks, Billy shows up at the window. The cops arrive, they arrest Billy, and they're still processing what just happened when, boom, Gale and Kenny are already there. The police don't even have time to clear the scene before Gale's van is rolling up to cover the story. How? Even if Gale was helping to keep tabs on Sidney, Sid wasn't supposed to be at that house. Tatum was supposed to pick her up at 7. So Gale isn't just stalking Sidney to get to know her schedule, she is responding in real time. She doesn't just know that something has happened, she already knows about the Ghostface costume. See, this is the first time that the costume is mentioned in the film. It wasn't public knowledge after Casey and Steve, yet Gale already knows about it. And how is she getting information faster than the cops can leave the driveway? That's our first big red flag. Our second red flag is, well, the second phone call. Sid stays at Tatum's house after the attack. That night, she gets another call from Ghostface. Billy's in jail. So that pretty much forces us to accept that Stu is the one that made that call. That lines up. Stu, Tatum, they're a thing, so he'd know exactly where Sid was staying and how to get that number, even if Tatum wasn't necessarily involved. See the Tatum theory. But you know who else knows? Gale. After Gale gets punched by Sidney outside the school, she watches Sidney and Tatum leave together. She physically sees where Sidney's new safe house is, and she knows that's also where Dewey lives. Gale is smart enough to put one and one together. Sid is traumatized. The killer is still out there. Dewey is a cop. Tatum is dating Stu. That is a whole web of access points, and Gale just got a front row seat to all of them. At minimum, it puts her in the perfect position to start tracking movements and milking the situation for more information. Now, at this point, let's go to the high school. When Sid gets attacked in the bathroom, it feels like this disconnected moment in the movie. There's this really immersive series of events, and then something that almost gives paranormal vibes happens, where it feels like Ghostface teleported in there. At least the way that it's shaped, the way that it's framed, it really stands apart from the other sequences that we see Ghostface in that are all a lot more grounded. See, it feels like it's random, and it feels like maybe even a prank. But what if it's not? See, earlier that day outside the school, Gale and Sidney have a crucial conversation about Maureen's murder. And it's Gale, not the cops, not the town gossip, not the kids, who say out loud that Maureen's murder and the new killings might be connected. Up until that point, nobody has made the connection on screen. The police aren't saying it, Sidney isn't saying it, reporters aren't saying it, it's Gale who puts that theory into the air first. That's not just a wild guess. That sounds like somebody with prior knowledge of Maureen's case, details about Casey and Steve, and a strong suspicion that this is part of a much larger story. Once Gale frames it that way publicly, literally everything changes. Suddenly, this isn't just a random series of events. It is a possible serial narrative that loops in Maureen Prescott and Cotton Weary, which is perfect for Gale. So here's the question. If nobody else on screen is talking about that connection yet, what does Gale know that we don't? Who has been feeding her background information from inside Woodsboro? Now, let's shift gears and talk about motive for a second. Gale genuinely seems to care about Cottonweary. She believes he's innocent. She's staked her career on it, and she's desperate to prove that it's true to the world. Now, that's noble on paper, but Gale's also chasing stardom. She wants ratings, a best selling book, respect, and a total image rewrite. See, she even talks about it in the movie. People treat her like she's the antichrist of television journalism. But what does she need to fix that? She needs to be the hero journalist who breaks the story, clears Cotton's name, saves the final girl, and comes out as the brave eyewitness who risked her life for the sake of the truth. If the story doesn't deliver enough drama on its own, do we really think Gale wouldn't give it just a little push in the right direction? I'm not saying she'd pay somebody to stab Sidney or something ridiculous like that, but slipping a 20 to a couple of idiot kids to scare Sid in the bathroom, to push the town into more hysteria and prove her theory that somebody is targeting Sid, that feels exactly like something Gale in the first one would do. She doesn't need to orchestrate murder. She just needs to orchestrate fear. Fear makes better stories. Fear justifies being there with a camera. Fear makes Gale look like the only one who saw it coming. Now, we fast forward to the party. Stu's party is the central pivot point, the central hinge point of the entire movie. This is where we get into the final long sequence that is just so masterfully shot and packaged and presented. And Gale has absolutely no business being at the house party. It's a bunch of teenagers drinking beer in the middle of nowhere. There is no scheduled press conference, no police perimeter, no official story to be had. It is just a house party. Yet Gale shows up anyway, with a camera, with a bow, with a plan. When Dewey catches her, she hand waves it all away with basically, well, something might happen. Okay, so you're just casually showing up to a random high school party because you had a hunch? I don't think so. It's starting to feel less like Gale is following the story and more like she's reading from a script that nobody else has ever seen. Every time the killers escalate, she's right there, ready to turn it into breaking news. But it doesn't stop there. Who's the one that notices Neil Prescott's car? Could that be coincidence? Sure. Anything could be coincidence. But how many times do we clock Gale being in the perfect place, with the perfect angle, at the perfect moment, before we start asking if she's tracking something that the others aren't? At this point, she's been at the crime scene, at Sid's house, at the school, at Tatum's, at the party. And now she's the one to point out that the car that proves Sid's dad might be in it might be the killer, is right there. It's like she's getting updates straight from Ghostface HQ. Again, I'm not saying she knows that Billy and Stu are the killers. If they knew, she knew, they probably would have, in the words of Randy, sliced and diced. But there is a pattern. Gale is always ahead of Sidney, ahead of Dewey, ahead of the cops. Someone or something has to be feeding her information to be in the right place at the right time, and she's not asking many questions as long as it helps her story. So let's zoom in on who Gale Weathers is. She tells Dewey that people treat her like the antichrist of television journalism. She is the tabloid ghoul, the vulture, the one who profits off of tragedy, and that reputation clearly bothers her. So what fixes that? A redemption arc. All she needs is one massive, high-profile case where she can prove Cottonweary was innocent, expose the real killers, physically save the heroine, and report the entire thing live. If you look at her actions through that lens, they make a lot more sense. She's not just covering the story, she's trying to be involved in it. She's not just chasing a series of traumatic events, she's trying to curate specific situations. And if things stall out, she's not above giving fate a little push in the right direction. She uses Dewey as a puppet to get closer to the investigation. She manipulates Sid's trauma on camera. She openly pushes the narrative that the current killings and Maureen's murder are connected, even before the film itself confirms that fact. Gale isn't evil in a Ghostface kind of way, but she is ruthless in a narrative kind of way. At this point, we fast forward to the closing moments of the movie. Near the end, Gale gets her big moment. She finds the gun, she confronts Billy and Stu, and literally rehearses the story that would make her the hero journalist that she always wanted to be. Finds the gun, foils the plan, saves the day. But when she tries to shoot Billy, the gun doesn't fire, and then Billy tries out to become a Spartan, kicking her into Kingdom Come, takes the gun, but doesn't kill her. She's still there because he turns around and looks for Sid, and that's where we move on from there. There's a comment in the middle of that, though. It works better with the safety off. See, the safety was on the whole time. Now, we cut to the final showdown. Gale comes back, bloody, wobbling, and says, I guess I remembered the safety that time, you bastard. There's a problem with all of this. She could not have heard Billy's line about the safety if she had truly been unconscious. That implies one thing. She was faking it. She played possum. She let the scene unfold. She waited for the perfect moment to step back in and complete the story that she had already scripted in her head. And when she pulls that trigger and saves Sid, watch her face. It's not just relief. That's satisfaction. Her plan worked. She did become the hero journalist. The final shot in the film is Gale Weathers standing in front of the Mocker House giving an exclusive eyewitness account of the massacre. The last line of the movie is her calling the shots for the cameraman, already turning hell into headlines. Her scheme is a success. But we're not done here. Let's talk about maybe the biggest piece of information in the entire movie, Gale's hidden tape. She plants that little wireless camera under the TV at Stu's house. It's recording the living room. Randy on the couch, the party, people moving in and out. But in theory, it would also be recording Sidney and Stu fighting, Billy and Stu's entire villain monologue in the kitchen, Billy confessing to Maureen's murder, Randy getting shot, Dewey stagger walking in with a knife in his back, and Sid in the Ghostface robe during the final reversal. We know it's recording because Gale explicitly tells Kenny to hit record. And it's not just a live feed. If the police recovered that tape, it would blow everything wide open. It's Pulitzer material. Forget the book, forget the interviews. Gale would literally have the killers confessing on camera and footage of herself and Sid saving the day. So, what happened to the tape? After Kenny dies and Gale discovers a body, she panics, drives off, and crashes the car. The camera is still inside. It's still rolling. Billy and Stu even mention checking on Gale after the crash, which implies they're aware of her equipment and her presence at the scene. Did Stu go out, see the wreck, and destroy the tape? Maybe. But then how does the Stab series recreate certain scenes almost word for word? How do they know about the specific conversations that have only happened inside that house? One possibility is that Gale's tape survived, that it became the blueprint of the book and later on the Stab series. And if that's true, it means that Gale had more visual proof of what happened that night than we ever see on screen. In other words, her biggest source of information in Scream might be her own surveillance. All of this brings us back to the original question. If Gale isn't psychic, how does she keep beating everybody to the punch? Who's the inside connection? Is it Billy? It's possible, but it's unlikely. Billy's too focused on framing Neil and recreating his psychodrama with Sid. Letting Gale in on anything would have been risky, and he seems to play it a lot safer than that. Now, Dewey, he gives her access without even realizing it, but he isn't cunning enough to deliberately feed her confidential intel. He's manipulated. He's not a mastermind. Is it Stu? This is where things get interesting. Gale and Stu share a long, loaded stare during the movie. Stu is dating Tatum, which puts him adjacent to Sid, Dewey, and every major other character. He loves a spectacle. He loves the drama. And he'd absolutely enjoy guiding a reporter just to see what happens. Did Gale know Billy and Stu were Ghostface? No, I don't think so. But is it possible that one of them, most likely Stu, was letting just enough info leak to keep her close, to keep the camera rolling, and to turn Woodsboro into a stage? Yeah, absolutely. But maybe it wasn't just one person. Maybe it was a loose-lipped cop here, a drunk teenager there, a few nudges from Stu, plus Gale's own willingness to manufacture scares and push narratives. The point is, Gale's access is too precise for it to just be luck. She moves through the story like somebody with a cheat sheet. She's always in the right place at the right time. She is rarely truly in danger. She walks away the only major character essentially unscathed with no lasting damage. She isn't necessarily the purest victim, and she's not a killer. She is somebody in between, a survivor who might have helped set the stage for the horror that she then benefited from. So no, I don't think Gale Weathers was secretly a Ghostface. And I don't even think that she was the fourth man in the room if you include Tatum. Again, the Tatum theory. But I do think that she's responsible for a lot more of Woodsboro's chaos than the movie openly admits. She had motive, redemption, stardom. She had opportunity, access to cops, kids, and the crime scenes. And she had a pattern. She's always there, she's always ready, and she's never late. Whether her inside source was Stu, some nameless cop, or just her own ruthless instincts, one thing is clear. Gale Weathers didn't just cover the story of Scream. She helped write it. Let me know what you think of this one. Was Gale in on it? What theories do you have ahead of Scream 7? Y'all, if you enjoyed this video, YouTube will think that you will enjoy this video. Check it out.